Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Wrinkled Genius podcast. Have you ever watched someone you love, a parent, a spouse, maybe even yourself, and noticed little changes that just don't sit right? Maybe they're moving slower than usual, or they seem quieter, like something's shifted deep down. After 60, we all slow down a bit. It's part of the ride, but sometimes those shifts are more than just aging. They can be quiet whispers from the body, hints that time might be winding down. I've been there, watching my dad in his last year, and I wish I'd known what to look for, not to dwell on the end, but to make the most of the time we had left. In this video, we're going to talk about 5 subtle signs that might suggest an elderly person is in their final year. These aren't loud alarms or scary diagnoses, they're gentle clues, backed by science and stories from folks who've walked this road. We'll cover things like how they move, what they eat, how they feel, day-to-day stuff you might notice in yourself or someone close. Knowing these signs isn't about fear. It's about understanding, so you can step in with love, support, or even a doctor's visit if it feels right. I'm sharing this because I've seen how it matters, and I want you to feel ready too. So let us sit down together and walk through what I've learned, these signs you shouldn't brush off. Watch until the end because you might be missing out on little things that could have a huge impact on your future. First, let's start with something you can't miss if you're paying attention. They're pulling back from life more than usual. I don't mean they're just skipping the occasional bingo night. After 70 or 80, it's normal to pick and choose what you're up for. This is deeper, like a slow fade from things they used to love. Maybe they stop tending the garden they've nurtured for years, or they don't perk up when the grandkids visit. It's not laziness. It's a quiet retreat, like their energy's turning inward. Studies from places like the Journal of Palliative Medicine say this can be a sign the body's starting to wind down, saving strength for what's ahead. I saw this with my dad. He was 84, and he'd always been the guy tinkering in his shed, fixing anything with a screw loose. Then one summer, he just stopped. Tools sat untouched, and he'd wave me off if I asked about it. "Oh, I'll get to it later," he'd say, but he never did. Looking back, it wasn't just tiredness, it was his spark dimming. If you notice this in someone, or even feel it yourself, don't panic, but don't ignore it either. Check in, ask what's up, see if they're okay, maybe nudge them toward a doctor. It's a sign something's shifting, and catching it early can make a difference, whether it's comfort or care they need. Now let's talk about the second sign. Their appetite's fading, and not just for a day or two. We all have off days where food doesn't sound good. Maybe it's a cold or a big lunch, but this is more than that. It's when they're barely picking at meals they used to savor, or skipping them altogether without much reason. After 70, your taste buds might dull a bit, sure, but a steady drop-off can signal the body's slowing its engines. Research ties this to the final year. When the system doesn't need as much fuel, it stops asking for it, and that can show up as weight slipping away too. My Auntie Grace was like this. She'd been a pie-baking queen at 79, always sneaking seconds. Then, in her last year, she'd push her plate away saying, "I'm just not hungry." We thought it was her teeth at first, but even soft stuff like soup sat there. She dropped pounds we didn't notice until her sweaters hung loose. It's tough to spot at first. Could be meds, could be sadness. But if it lingers, it's worth a closer look. Try tempting them with something small they love, a bite of cake, a sip of broth, and see how they react. If they're still turning away, talk to a doctor. It's a subtle clue their body's whispering, and it's one you can act on with kindness. Pulling back from life and losing that appetite are like the first little ripples on the water, easy to miss if you're not watching, but they tell a story when you piece them together. They're not the end of the road by themselves, but they're hints to lean in, listen, and maybe lend a hand. And that brings us to the third sign, how much they're sleeping, or not sleeping in a way that's new. With that quiet retreat from life and a fading appetite starting to show up, you might notice the days feeling a little different, maybe heavier, maybe slower. That's when the third sign crept into my world, how much they're sleeping, or not sleeping, in a way that's new. After 70, sleep can get tricky. Some nights you're up too late, Others you're out like a light, but this is more than a restless spell. It's a shift that doesn't quite fit, like their body's clock is winding down or spinning out of sync. Science says this can be a gentle nudge, that the end might be closer than you think, and it's one I wish I'd paid more attention to. For some, it's sleeping way more than usual, napping through the afternoon, nodding off mid-conversation, like they can't keep their eyes open. That's how it was with my dad in his last year. He'd always been up with the sun, but suddenly he was dozing in his chair by noon, and bedtime stretched earlier every week. Other times it's the opposite, tossing and turning all night, up at odd hours, like rest won't come no matter how tired they are. Studies, like ones from the American Geriatric Society, tie both to that final stretch. Too much sleep can mean the body's conserving energy. Too little can signal it's struggling to shut down. Either way, it's a change that stands out. If you're watching, I didn't catch it at first. Thought Dad was just worn out from a busy month. But when he started sleeping through his favorite shows, I should have asked more questions. If you see this, someone snoozing half the day or pacing at night, don't brush it off. Sit with them, see how they feel, maybe mention it to a doctor. It could be meds or something fixable, but if it's new and steady, it's a sign their system's whispering something's up. A little extra care, adjusting their pillow, cutting evening coffee might help, but it's worth knowing what's behind it. Then there's the fourth sign, and this one's harder to miss once it starts. Increasing weakness or falls. After 70, we all slow down a bit. Knees creak, steps get careful. But this is different. It's when they're wobbling more, leaning on furniture to get around, or tumbling in ways they never used to. Falls aren't just accidents. They're a big red flag. Science links to that last year. Research shows folks who fall a lot, or can't bounce back after one, often have less time left, because it's tied to muscles fading, balance slipping, or the body just not keeping up like it did. My neighbor Bill, who was 83, showed this. Plain as day. He'd been steady as a rock, mowed his own lawn, hauled groceries no problem. Then he started tripping, once on the porch steps, once in the kitchen. And after the second fall, he couldn't get up without help. He'd laugh it off, but his legs were giving out, and a year later, he was gone. It's not just the falls, it's the weakness creeping in before them. Maybe they're gripping the railing tighter or taking forever to stand from a chair. I saw it with my aunt too. Her hands shook lifting a teacup, and soon she was staying put more than moving. You can't stop every tumble, but you can watch for this. Do they seem shakier than last month? Are they dodging stairs they used to? Climb? If it's happening, don't wait. Get them a cane or walker if they'll take it, and talk to a doctor about strength exercises or a checkup. My cousin got her mom a grab bar for the bathroom after a near miss, and it bought some peace of mind. It's a sign the body's signaling a shift, and stepping in early, whether it's support or just being there, can soften what's coming. It's not about hovering, it's about helping them stay safe while they can. Sleep changing and weakness growing are like the body's way of turning up the volume on those quiet whispers, telling you something's shifting under the surface. They're not loud or sudden, but they build on that pulling back and appetite drop, painting a picture you can't ignore if you're close enough to see it. And that brings us to the fifth sign. How their mood starts to drift in ways you wouldn't expect. With sleep patterns shifting and that growing weakness showing up, you might start feeling like the pieces are adding up, little changes that don't feel so little anymore. That's when the fifth sign slipped into focus for me. How their mood starts to drift in ways you wouldn't expect. After 70, we all have our ups and downs. Some days you're laughing with the grandkids, others you're grumbling about the weather. But this is different. It's a quiet shift, like their spirits pulling back, and it's one science says can hint at that final year. It's not always loud sadness. Sometimes it's subtle, and that's what makes it so easy to miss until it's staring you in the face. This can look a couple of ways. For some, it's a kind of letting go, They stop worrying about the small stuff, like bills or fixing the leaky faucet, and start talking more about the past, like they're sorting through old memories. My dad did this. He'd sit for hours, reminiscing about fishing trips from 40 years ago, but when I'd ask about tomorrow, he'd shrug, like it didn't matter much. Studies, like ones from hospice research, say this can be the mind preparing, reflecting, instead of planning. Other times, it's a deeper quiet, less laughter, less spark, like they're tired in a way rest doesn't fix. My Aunt Grace got like that. She'd been a chatterbox, but in her last months, she'd just sit, staring out the window, barely smiling even when I brought her favorite pie. It's tricky because it's not always depression, could be, and that's worth checking, but often it's softer, like they're drifting somewhere we can't follow. I wish I'd seen it clearer with Dad. Thought he was just in a funk, but looking back, he was winding down. If you notice this, someone dropping out of their usual mood, whether it's calm detachment or a heavy stillness, lean in. Ask how they're feeling, really listen, maybe share a memory to see if they light up. My cousin tried this with her mom, brought up old recipes, and got a flicker of the old her back, even if just for a moment. It's a sign their heart's shifting, and a doctor or a kind ear might help figure out what's behind it. You don't have to fix it. Just be there. If they're pulling inward, bring a little outward love. Sit with them, hold their hand, see if they'll talk. It might not change the clock, but it can change the moment, and that's what counts. I learned that too late with Grace. Wish I'd spent more time just being, instead of pushing her to perk up. This mood drifts a whisper from their soul, and it ties into everything else. The retreating, the appetite, the sleep, the falls, telling you time might be shorter than you think. So there you have it, 5 signs that might mean an elderly person is in their final year. Pulling back from life, losing their appetite, sleeping odd hours, growing weaker with falls, and that drifting mood. They're not blaring sirens, they're soft, easy to brush off if you're not looking. But when you see them together, like I did, with my dad and Aunt, they paint a picture of a body and spirit gently saying, I'm tired. I'm not sharing this to scare you, it's about knowing, so you can make the days you've got left for yourself or someone you love as full as they can be. These signs don't come with a countdown, everyone's different, and some bounce back with a little help. If you spot them, don't freeze, talk to a doctor, see what's fixable, whether it's a med tweak or more rest. My neighbor caught her husband's falls early, got him a walker, and he's still here 2 years later. For me, it was too late to change much, but I could have savored the time more, sat longer, listened harder. You've got that chance. Now watch for these whispers and act with love, not worry. Maybe it's a checkup, maybe it's a hug, but it's yours to do. What is one sign that has hit home for you, or maybe one you've seen and didn't realize? Drop it in the comments, I'd love to hear your story. And if this has opened your eyes a bit, give it a like and hit subscribe so we can keep talking about this stuff together. You're not alone in this, we're all figuring it out, and these signs are just a way to hold on to what matters most. Here's to making every day count, however many we've got. See you soon.